Hello. Welcome once again to the Kindred UMC pre-recorded live show, coming to you pre-recordedly from my front room, aka Kindred Studio A. My name is Chris Hayden and I am the pastor.
Hi, I'm Courtney Young. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at Kindred UMC.
And I'm Preston the Dude. And start putting fruit in your drinks. It's worth it and it's not a waste.
All right.
That's good advice.
Yeah, and it's fruitful.
Fruits.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could even do a little biblical analogy about it.
Okay.
Bearing fruit of the Spirit. Good fruit.
Oh boy.
So we are continuing our series on King David, the rise and fall of King David, part, I think we're 5 now. And we're going to be talking about, still David, even though he's been anointed king. If you don't know where we are, I encourage you to look at the previous episodes. But he's still not king. There's still this other king, Saul, who's kind of an asshole.
Lawyering.
He's a little bit of a jerk. And is very jealous of David. And as a result, so we talked about last week, King Saul was very jealous of David, tries to kill him. David goes on the run. In between last week and this week, David has gone on the run. He has a band of followers, he has soldiers that he's in command of.
So merry men?
Merry men. You might even call them merry men. A band of merry men, and he's on the run. And Saul is kind of after him and wants to kill him. So Saul is still maintaining political power as king, and David has been anointed king, but it's complicated because Saul has also been anointed king. So there's a spiritual element here too. It's like God's chosen. That's the way that people of that era thought about their political leaders. This is God's sovereign anointed king. So we're going to pick up at 1 Samuel chapter 24. We're going to read pretty much the whole thing. I'll do my best to be quick because it's a whole chapter. When Saul returned from following the Philistines, so he was out to war, he was battling. When Saul returned from following the Philistines, he was told, "David is in the wilderness of En-gedi." Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to look for David and his men in the direction of the rocks of the wild goats. He came to the sheepfolds beside the road where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they find a cave. They're on the road. They find a cave. Saul has to pee, and he goes into the cave to pee. Now, David and his men were sitting in the innermost parts of the cave. The men of David said to him, "Here is the day of which the Lord said to you, I will give your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it seems good to you." This is a good, important, pay attention to that phrase, as it seems good to you. And this is ancient good storytelling. This is a setup punchline scenario. God's going to give your enemy into your hand and you'll be able to do whatever you want to him. And now we're going to find out what whatever you want is. So, as it seems good to you. Then David went and stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's cloak. Afterward, David was stricken to the heart because he had cut off a corner of Saul's cloak, and he said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord." Lord, capital. This is where it's really helpful to say Yahweh instead. I should be saying Yahweh. So, Yahweh forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, Yahweh's anointed, to raise my hand against him, for he is Yahweh's anointed. So he only cuts off a corner of his cloak, even though Saul is literally trying to hunt him down and kill him, and then feels guilty for cutting off even a corner of Yahweh's anointed's cloak. So David scolded his men severely and did not permit them to attack Saul. Then Saul got up and left the cave and went out on his way. Afterwards, David also rose up and went out of the cave and called after Saul, "My lord, the king!" When Saul looked behind him, David bowed his face to the ground and did obeisance. David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of those who say, David seeks to do you harm. This very day your eyes have seen how Yahweh gave you into my hand in the cave, and some urged me to kill you, but I spared you. I said, I will not raise my hand against my Lord, for he is Yahweh's anointed. See, my father, see the corner of your cloak in my hand? For by the fact that I cut off the corner of your cloak and did not kill you, you may know for certain that there is no wrong or treason in my hands. I have not sinned against you, though you are hunting me to take my life. May Yahweh judge between me and you. May Yahweh avenge me on you, but my hand shall not be against you. As the ancient proverb says, out of the wicked comes forth wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you. Against whom has the king of Israel come out? Whom do you pursue? A dead dog? A single flea? May Yahweh therefore be judge and give sentence between me and you. May he see to it and plead my cause and vindicate me against you. So this is a speech. It's a little Shakespearean. It's written poetically this is melodrama. This is Chekhovian. This is Shakespearean. And he's essentially saying, listen, we have beef, but I'm going to leave that to Yahweh. I will not raise my hand against you, and here's the proof. Look, you were right here within the grip of my hand when I could have killed you, and instead I spared you. You have nothing to fear from me. I could have killed you, and I didn't. I am satisfied with whatever God decides. And so he's kind of trying to prove to Saul that you don't have to pursue me and kill me. I don't mean any harm against you. When David had finished speaking these words to Saul, Saul said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" Saul lifted up his voice and wept. He said to David, "You are more righteous than I, for you have repaid me good where I have repaid you evil. Today you have explained how you have dealt with me, in that you did not kill me when Yahweh put me into your hands. For who has ever found an enemy and sent the enemy safely away? So may Yahweh reward you with good for what you have done to me this day. Now I know that you shall surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in your hand. Swear to me, therefore, by Yahweh, that you will not cut off my descendants after me, and that you will not wipe out my name from my father's house." So David swore this to Saul. Then Saul went home, but David went with his men up to the stronghold. So, first of all, initial thoughts, concerns, questions, comments? What do you make of this? What's the story about to you?
I have another story on top of it to keep it short. It's from a comedian, and he was talking about his two kids. The younger kid is, if anyone knows
Louis C.K.?
No.
Oh.
Steve Renazizi, if anyone, The League, great show. He has two boys, and they're he describes them as the of mice and men. So one is he's the younger one, the big dumb one. And he just likes to have fun, and he says, "Hi, Daddy," when he's on the top of the stairs. And the cunning, younger Joe Pesci version, other child is behind in the room, pokes his head out and notices his brother's at the top of the stairs. Pushes the brother, grabs the shirt, pulls the brother back, and whispers in his ear, "I saved you." And then runs off. And there's two different people here. There's one who has...
Watch out for that kid.
The one who has assumed everybody loves and everybody's good and he's naive and oblivious, while the other one has figured life out and knows you kind of have to grab life by the balls and control your own shit. So in this situation, when he cut the robe, kind of felt like, I have an excuse now I can use to save my own ass. While Saul...
Well... Yes, I would say the one understanding that's important that differs kind of from that narrative is everyone would have believed, everyone loves David. His men are urging him. If he had killed Saul, nobody on the planet would have blamed him for it.
People would have understood.
Yeah. Everyone would be like, this guy's, you are the king and he's the king and you are out to kill him. Or he's out to kill you, and so you killed him because he was going to kill you. That makes total sense. Also, thanks for taking care of that whole Goliath situation. And winning all of our battles for us. Thank you. You've been a great general. So that's the one difference, is that not at this point king, but David would have been justified. This is more about an internal faithfulness for David about this is about what he believes about God's providence and God's will in his life and in King Saul's life also.
So is this a predestination free will example?
I mean,
in your hands, I leave you to your choice.
We can talk. To me, no. I think this is much more about the choice. Well, I mean, I guess that is, but like to me, this really lifts up the choice. Like, it's arguable to say that God would have been upset with David if he killed Saul. But I think the key to this text lies in that very first setup. Yahweh is delivering your enemy into your hands to see what you will do. So what are you going to do? You have your enemy by the balls.
Yeah, almost literally.
Like pretty close to literally, you know. He's literally got his pants down, you know. You have your enemy in a completely vulnerable situation. This person who's seeking after you.
It's a bit on the
what
nose,
will you
too.
do?
It's a bit on the nose, because since Saul is already like blood curdled, like he's ready to go at any moment. Just to turn it on the
Oh, and
here.
he's got 3,000 men, I think. Yeah, 3,000 soldiers with him. Yeah, he's ready to kill David. He's
But
ready
he
to
was
just.
peeing in a cave.
He's ready to take the fight. So, to me, I think the primary theme of this particular story is mercy.
Yeah, or grace.
What's the nature of mercy or grace? So, I mean, have you ever experienced like real mercy, where you really deserved something and got out of it, or was spared from it, or dodged a bullet?
I got a quick one for everybody, and sorry for those that have been in this type of mess. Falling asleep at the wheel. And not hitting a guardrail, not hitting someone in front of you, waking up and somehow you're perfectly straight on an interstate.
I've been that. It really makes you pucker, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in that situation when I was working full time and I was going to school full time. I lived in Tampa, went to school in Orlando, and when I was coming back from a whole day of class, late at night, and like I had that experience.
Pushing it where energy drinks can't take you at all.
It's scary.
Yeah, I would say for me, like,
That's more of like a serene grace versus someone from
Yeah, sure.
from a person, from someone else,
However you interpret it, that's fine.
It feels a little crazy.
I would say for me, high school was kind of the definition of that. Like, I did not do well in school at all. I barely functioned. I was fine with failing, didn't have any motivation, but I had teachers, a particular debate teacher, in fact, that like pushed me and wanted better for me, and would get me out of situations, like would help give me extra assignments or give me extra time because they knew what I was going through at home, and like that would be, I passed and graduated and found my calling because of it. So
That's a really relatable one. I think I talked about this before, about the apprentice-master relationship thing, where in this case the apprentice is this kind of pushover, doesn't want to do anything, and the master's like, I know how you need to be, so I understand where you are, but you got to do it this way, or you're going to end up in a foxhole, literally, and stuck with your pants down. So let me help you here, even though you don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think. So I also like one of the story I can think of many. One of the stories that comes to my mind is when I was a youth director. Wrong tube. Oh man, excuse me. Sorry. I was youth director. Confirmation is a big deal. And I had kind of had some conversations with my boss, my pastor at the time, about like, hey, I'm not sure I'm called to this anymore, and I'm floundering, I'm unsure. And he's like, you're doing all right. It's keep doing what you're doing. And I basically, metaphorically took my hands off the wheel for, like, I just was going through some stuff, and I really, really let a big ball drop at the end of the big kind of confirmation moment. I just kind of screwed the whole thing up. And I remember having a conversation with him, and the feeling of like, I don't actually have any argument against this, other than I tried to tell you that this was coming, but that's still not really a good excuse. And him being like, this is a real problem. And I remember the feeling of like, there would be absolutely no argument against him firing me right now. And being in that feeling and him being like, and what that ultimately ended up turning into was me not doing youth anymore, but becoming the worship director. It led to it was a longer process than just like one moment, but it led to the conversation of like, listen, it's time for us to make some kind of a move, and I think maybe you should apply to be the worship director rather than the youth director, because I was kind of doing both. And that was that led to one of the best times in my like working life, and it was a merciful, graceful thing for him to do. It was not something that I had earned. It was something that he was like trying to take care of me, even though I had really, really seriously let a lot of people down. And so I don't have like a nice, neat bow, other than to say, I think it's important that we recognize the power of mercy and grace in people's lives.
Not throwing out babies with the bathwater. Instead,
yeah,
I'm in the business of taking those babies out.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say I'm in the business of pulling babies out of bathwater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the bathwater here in the Saul situation is like the system he was kind of in. Feels like
it's so easy to paint
into
Saul as the villain and just off him and be rid of him in the story. It's so easy to do that. But to do that is to neglect the reality that this is a person, at least, and if, I tend not to take these stories too terribly literally, but the understanding is this is Yahweh's anointed. Something of value, something of purpose and meaning is here in this person's existence. And to just get rid of them and to just write them off as one-dimensional, as an only one thing, is to do harm not only to them and to you, but to like the idea of a humanity and existence. And that's kind of the way it goes. Like it is so easy for us now, particularly now, to write off our enemies as one-dimensional caricatures of what they are, and to reject and not appreciate the image of God, the soul that is in each of us, the humanity that binds us, however you want to label it, like it is so easy to just be like, that protester's a this, or that racist is this, or like it's so easy to go down those roads and just write people off. And one of the things that I think is truly lacking in our current culture and our current dialogue about the things that matter most is some kind of understanding about mercy and grace and how we treat and recognize the humanity in the other. So I'd like to encourage all of us to appreciate the image of God that resides in every living human soul, even the one that you're thinking about right now that you can't stand. That person is in some way, we believe, chosen by God to exist and bring forth something and bears some kind of a spiritual calling on their lives and has something valuable to offer and bring. And so do you, for that matter. So May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison.